What is up, my YouTube family? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, then it's just welcome to my channel and not welcome back. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button because you will not be disappointed, unless of course your taste level is lacking, girl. And if that's the case, you can't get help at charter, please get help somewhere. Not me showing my age. You guys, really quickly before I get into today's video, I just want to say next week I won't be uploading because I booked a little getaway house in the woods for me and Bella and Blue. Hopefully that goes over well. We're going glamping, okay? And I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to it. We'll be out there for 3 days, and yeah, I'll likely have some footage of that to show y'all when I come back. So yeah. This case we're talking about today is so wild and crazy and bizarre. So I am not going to waste any more time. We are about to get right into it, and it's a lot. Today's case is about Anatoly Moskvin from Russia and his very interesting doll collection. And without further ado, let's start with his backstory, okay? Anatoly Moskvin was born in Russia on September 1st, 1966, making him a Virgo, like Miss Beyonce and like some of y'all. He is the only child of Elvira and Yuri Moskvin. And while not a whole lot about his childhood is known, I guess it was a pretty uneventful childhood. What is known and believed to have played a role in shaping his very peculiar and unusual interests and behaviors later on in life is that both of his parents are very strict, very overprotective. Both are highly intelligent. His father is actually a college professor, and I'm not sure what his mother did for a living. And little Anatoly himself is a very introverted child, always to himself, very quiet, very shy. He often finds solace in his little solitude and reading books. He loved to read. He has a very difficult time relating to the other children his age and socializing. He doesn't make any friends. There were a couple futile attempts to make friends, but it didn't really work out. And he doesn't press the issue because he genuinely does not mind being alone. And his parents feel like he struggles to connect with his peers because he's so much smarter than them, so much more advanced, far more mature than his peers. And so it's just a relatable thing. Like, our kid's not at all strange. He is just smart above them. Anatoly withdraws into his own little world and develops a very intense interest in linguistics, history, and cemeteries. It's a very interesting combination there. It is not long before the child is completely fascinated with death and the paranormal. He spends hours roaming the cemeteries and researching information about the individuals buried there, particularly children. His interest in death and burial rituals across different cultures becomes an obsession of his and intensifies as he grows older. He develops this fascination and desire to communicate with the dead, and this eventually takes a very disturbing turn. Now, Anatoly believes that there has to be a way to resurrect them. Like, this just can't be it. If Jesus came back in 3 days, baby, why can't we? And he spends a lot of his time researching and just thinking, trying to figure out how we could do that. In school, he performs very well and goes on to attend Moscow State University, where he studies linguistics and Celtic history. And as an adult, he lives a very secluded life, showing no interest still in forming any type of friendships, no interest in dating or getting married. He just wants to live at home with his parents and conduct his research. He does not leave the home much, and rarely is it ever to do anything recreational, nor does he drink or smoke. And he might sound a little bit like a little weirdo, but he is quite remarkable in some aspects. As a linguist, he speaks 13 languages and writes several books that are said to be well known and respected in academic circles, although his literary pieces remain unpublished, aside from the work that he does for newspapers. He regularly contributes to newspapers and some other publications, and it is always about cemeteries and different funeral practices amongst different cultures. Now, he describes himself as a necropolist. I'm not sure if that's really a thing or if he just made that up. Hey Siri, what is a necropolist?
Here's what I found from the Centers for Disease Control. Some Vibrio vulnificus infections lead to necrotizing fasciitis, a severe infection in which the flesh around an open wound dies.
Girls, just say you don't know. Get out of here. Siri don't know either. Over time, he is known, very well known locally, as a cemetery expert. From 2005 to 2007, he spends his time visiting and inspecting over 752 cemeteries across the region. And he does some very odd things during this time as well. He sleeps in different cemeteries. He drinks from puddles at some of the cemeteries. Just body and bug juice all on his tongue. Ugh. And he even spends a night sleeping inside of a coffin that was being prepared for someone's funeral. On several occasions, he is approached by police who suspect that he might be there late at night to do something sinister, but each time he presents his credentials and lets them know who he is and what he is there for, and he is never detained because they see him as an expert just there on business. He takes notes on each of the cemeteries and does research into the people that are there buried. And in 2009, people began visiting their loved ones' graves and finding them completely desecrated. Some of them would just be slightly disturbed as if they had been dug up but packed tightly, and some of them were completely dug up and not repacked. Believing it to be the actions of extremist groups, authorities patrol these areas more often and keep a closer eye on them to try to see if they could catch the person that is responsible. But for the next 2 years, graves continue to be disturbed at random, and no one can figure it out. Meanwhile, 45-year-old Anatoly, who is still at home with his parents in a tiny apartment, has established himself a new hobby: collecting antique life-size dolls. He spends his time dressing them up, oftentimes in little knee-high boots and raincoats, hats. He wraps them completely in fabric, he paints them, and also puts makeup on them. While his parents thought the dolls were a little big and that it was kind of awkward for him to be, spending his days making dolls, they didn't find anything wrong with it. Unbeknownst to them, these dolls are not dolls at all. They're actually the mummified remains of human girls. For 9 years, Anatoly creeps into cemeteries at night looking for new dolls to add to his collection. And he becomes so comfortable that he starts showing up to the cemetery with his own bag to transport them. And this arouses the suspicion of the cemetery caretaker. Because why are you here with a bag? And these graves are being disturbed? Like, two and two are equal than four, sir. The caretaker reports their concerns to the police, who are still trying their best to catch their, well, I guess not their best, let's be real, who have still been unable to locate this grave robber. And they take his report seriously and launch an investigation into Anatoly. They obtain a search warrant for his home, and on November 2nd of 2011, they raid the residence that he lives at with his parents. And during their search, they make the gruesome discovery of 29 mummified bodies of women and girls between the ages of 3 and 25. When an officer moves one of these dolls, it plays music. More disturbing than their appearance and the fact that they were once humans and he had mummified them is the fact that he'd installed sound boxes into some of their chests so that they would make noise and play music when he would play with them like real dolls do. And some of them had very disturbing themes. There was one that was like a morgue edition where he'd put a hospital tag on the doll with its date and cause of death. The dolls are all around his room. They are propped up in chairs. Some of them are on shelves. Some of them are on the floor, sitting up against the wall. And his room is also very full of like books and papers that he had either written or he was researching, just scattered all about. In addition to the dolls, he had taken photographs of each of their original grave sites. He also had videos of the grave sites, and he had taken some of the plaques home with them and had them in the room. Now, granted, he has a total of 29 dolls inside of the house. Over 150 graves have been reported disturbed over the years that he had been out here doing this. So some of them maybe he had gotten rid of along the way. I'm unsure. Anatoly also has maps of all the local cemeteries as well as doll making manuals. He cooperates completely with the police officers and tell them that he had created the dolls out of loneliness. And in addition to the voice and music boxes he had installed in some of them, he had also inserted either buttons or cartoon eyes into their sockets so that they could watch cartoons with him. Not all of the dolls are in his room. Some of them he kept in the garage of the apartment, and those dolls he claims to have grown a dislike for various reasons. And he also tells a story that had allegedly taken place when he was just 13 years old that had inspired this whole doll idea. Now, according to him, a group of men dressed in all black suits had stopped him on his way home from school as they were en route to the funeral of an 11-year-old girl named Natasha. They grab him and drag him along to the funeral and bring him up to her coffin where they push his face close to hers and force him to kiss her. And he says, quote, "I kissed her once, then again, then again." So it's like the first one, he was kind of like, wait a minute, what you doing? But then he realized he kind of liked it and gave her two more. He says, then the girl's grieving mother approaches the coffin with a ring and puts a wedding band on his finger and also another ring on her deceased daughter's little finger and performs a wedding between the two of them. And he says that this experience led him to a belief in magic and fueled his fascination with young deceased girls. Now, do I believe that happened? Baby, if it did, I'm Britney Spears, okay? In my opinion. But I'm curious to know if y'all believe that this happened to him. Let me know. Somebody got to believe him, I guess. He also states that he had started this to satisfy his desire to have children of his own, particularly a daughter. He'd visited adoption agencies but had been denied because he did not make enough money. And he also said that he was just waiting on science to make a way for us to bring them back. But in the meantime, he would just preserve them as best he could and settle for the amount of company and companionship that they provide in their current state. Anatoly would even celebrate their birthdays as if they were real children. When asked if he had had any attraction to the dolls, he denies it. He says that he looked at them as if they were his real living children. There was no point in which he sexualized any of them. And as for his parents, they said that, of course, they had seen the dolls, but had no idea that they were actual bodies. And I already know y'all are wondering about the smell. We'll get to that. His parents claimed that the entire time they believed that their son was refurbishing old antique dolls. Shoes found in the apartment that belonged to him matched the shoe prints that had previously been noted at these scenes where the graves had been disturbed, and officers are 100% sure that they have found their grave robber. Neighbors of the Moskvins are shocked to hear what had been going on inside of their home, and they say that they did notice a very rancid odor coming from the Moskvin unit anytime that they opened their door, but they never would have thought this was going on inside. A lot of them actually thought that the smell was coming up from the basement, and from my understanding, the basement was not a part of their apartment. It was beneath their apartment. So that is something that they believe to have been out of the Moskvins' control, if it is in fact coming from beneath their home and not their actual apartment. And people who were familiar with Anatoly were completely floored, saying that they believe that he was such a sweet, nice guy. And I feel like both things can be Troy once. He could have been nice and crazy. A lot of people are. Nice and sick. In court, Anatoly confesses to 44 counts of abusing graves and corpses. And to the victims' families, he has something to say. Quote, "You abandoned your girls. I brought them home and warmed them up." He also tells authorities that it is best not to bother reburying them because he is going to dig them up as soon as he is released. They have him analyzed and he is diagnosed schizophrenic. They also find him to be unfit to stand trial, and so he is released from criminal liability at that point. Instead of going to prison, he is sent to a psychiatric hospital where each year he is to be evaluated, and either he will be extended, his treatment will be extended, or he would be allowed to go home. His parents also suffer some of the consequences of his actions. The community completely ostracizes them and makes them extremely uncomfortable, to the point where his mother actually suggests to the father that they just go ahead and end their little lives, baby. The daddy was not for it. He said, "Not me." And so she decided to stick by her man and ride it out. The two of them live in complete isolation and just try to avoid conflict and public scrutiny. In September 2018, Anatoly's doctors petitioned for his release, stating that he's well enough to go home and continue outpatient care in the comfort of his own home. He is no longer a threat to the public, and he is no longer considered a dangerous man. And of course, the girl's parents are outraged hearing this. This is only 7 years into his hospital stay. They speak out against it, and he still refuses to apologize to them. He has absolutely no regrets and doesn't feel that he had done anything wrong. And what was really sick is one of the parents, her daughter was 10 when she buried her, and she was completely sick at the fact that she'd had her daughter for 10 years and he literally had her for 9. That's insane. In February 2019, just a couple of months after they petitioned for his release, he is evaluated and the psychiatrist finds that he is not suitable for release at all. And the hospital withdraws their petition for that to happen. And on March 18th of 2021, Anatoly Moskvin dies in prison at the tender age of 55. And this concludes today's video. Let me know your thoughts down below on this case. It is insane. Do y'all think his parents had an inkling that those dolls were really mummified bodies or not? Because I'm on the fence. I don't know if I quite believe that they didn't know. Even if the neighbors were not sure that the odor was coming from inside their apartment or beneath it in the basement, they knew it was coming from inside. You know what those dolls smell like, and that's just my 2 cents. But I'm curious to know what you thought as well. So comment down below. Like the video, please, before you leave. Subscribe if you have not. As always, I appreciate you so much for spending your time with me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one, which will not be next week because we're going glamping. It'll be the week after. Peace. Hey, Blue. September 1st, 1966, making him I almost said Scorpio. No. It's not one of us. He spends hours No. He spends hours exploring cemeteries and collecting information about the individuals. Where the D at, girl? Where is the D? Keep a closer eye on them. Meanwhile, 45-year-old, I was gonna call her Moscow girl, like Moscow Mule. My goodness. And those dolls he saw inside of their home. I just messed up my shadow. Yep, indeed. That was something that they believed to be out of the Moskvins. Instead of going to a hospital, he is sent to a No. He did go to a hospital, girl. We'll relax back there.